Covering the community, events, and people of Georgia, Carolina. This is the Means Report. Here is Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Means Report. Thank you so much for spending part of your Sunday with us, especially during this time of crisis in our community as we all try to recover from the huge ice storm, a recovery that is very much still in progress. And so that's why we're on the air on this Sunday to dedicate the next half hour to the recovery effort. We're going to talk to a couple of key local leaders about how things are going in two of the largest counties in the CSRA. We're also going to talk to several representatives of electric cooperatives to find out about their response, to talk to you about how they got the lights back on, and indeed if there are any of you left out there without power, when it will be restored. There are so many questions and so many concerns in the wake of this. We want to get right to them, and we're going to begin with a couple of key figures who need no introduction really, but they've been very busy lately, and that makes us all the more grateful that they're here today on the set of the Means Report. Pam Tucker, of course, is the Emergency and Operations Division Director for Columbia County, Georgia, and Augusta's Mayor Deke Copenhaver is here. Thank you all so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad.
I appreciate it. Let me begin, Pam, with you, going back to the onset of the ice storm until now. And we record this broadcast on Thursday, so this will be pretty close to being the latest information. But how are you feeling about Columbia County's response to the cleanup and the effort to get the debris off the streets and restore normalcy?
Well, you know, our emergency operations plan and our debris management plan came into play. All of our departments who have support and primary responsibility for emergency support functions followed the plan, did everything they needed to do. We took care of people. I kept people updated because communication is so critical. I counted this morning and I actually sent out 72 email updates since February 9th through today. And I know you received a lot of those, probably all of them.
Well, and it got to the point where as soon as Pam's emails would come in, or anyone from Richmond County, your Richmond County counterparts, or other parts of the two-state, we would just go to reading the emails straight on the air, so I appreciate that. Mayor, same question for you. How are things going in Richmond County to date?
They're going very well. We've assessed the damage. It looks to be around $6 million. Hopefully the state will hit that just over $13 million figure so that we can access the federal funds. But things are going well to this point, but I'd ask people to be patient. This was a massive storm.
It was massive, and I want to get back to the individuals out there and to address what you all are going through, but let's stay on that federal money angle for just a moment. $6 million so far in Richmond County. Any idea on the total in Columbia?
You know, we think ours is going to be between $3 and $4 million. We had close to $378,000 just in personnel overtime cost, and then we have our material and equipment to add into that, and then the debris removal and the monitoring of that program and all that entails, we think will bring it up to probably somewhere around $3.5 million.
So if we're looking at $10 million just from Columbia and Richmond counties, my guess is we're going to easily hit the 13 and then some. What happens when we get that FEMA assistance? Is it straight cash coming in that can alleviate the burden on our local coffers? Is that how it works?
Pam, you can probably speak to the process on that.
It is all reimbursements.
Okay.
We will have to keep, and we have been from the beginning, keeping records of everything, so they're going to want a piece of paper to document and prove everything, and they're sticklers for that.
They're weighing debris, right? They're concerned with the poundage of your limbs that fell.
Yeah, we're actually monitoring ours by cubic yard, and we have a monitoring company who's making sure all the trucks are really full, as much as they can take before they go in and get counted as a truckload rather than weight. That is a pre-event contract that we already have in place, ready to pull the trigger on when something like this happens.
And Brad, I just have to say, I am so pleased with Augusta's response with our city staff. You know, we had a commission meeting on Tuesday, and we had people that lasted until 6 o'clock. People then went to our acting administrator, Tamika Allen, you know, our traffic engineering folks, then went to the 911 center to continue working with GEMA to establish those estimates. So I just have to say thank you to them.
Yeah, and thank you indeed to everyone who put on several different hats last week to try to help us. I recognize that, and I appreciate it, both elected officials and people in the private sector making it happen last week for sure. Is there a pecking order, Mayor Copenhaver, or a prioritization process when it comes to cleaning up that debris? Because people are looking out their windows right now at the big stacks of it.
Well, you know, some neighborhoods were hit harder than others, and obviously we're cleaning up the hardest hit neighborhoods, but this is a process. We've established a grid system, so we've got teams out there working, so we're not playing favorites with anyone.
How long is it until everyone's limbs are gone from in front of their house?
I would say several weeks.
Yeah.
Once again, I cannot overstate. I know Pam was putting out the warnings ahead of time. This was a massive storm. Truett Evenson from Georgia Power shared with me in the midst of it that this was a once-in-a-lifetime weather event. I am hopeful that that's the case and that this is the last one we'll see in our lifetime.
Pam, did you have any idea it would be this bad? I know y'all were ready, but sometimes you just can't be ready for things like this.
We did. We knew, and I had already said on Tuesday this was going to be a historical event. And, you know, some people even commented, you know, oh, the sky is falling. And I said, yes, the sky is falling, and it's going to fall in the form of ice, and you're going to lose power. And trying to get people to get their flashlights or generators or whatever that they needed to be prepared to be without power. Because just in 2004, we had some people without power for up to 2 weeks, and this was going to be worse than that, and it was. It was 1/8 of an inch of ice in 2004. This was 1 inch of ice, which is a tremendous amount of ice.
How much of a burden would you like the citizens to take on themselves when it comes to cleaning up? I'm thinking of my street only, and you've had a couple of private haulers come through that homeowners have hired, and their debris is gone. Is that, if people can do it, advisable so that the overall cleanup process is faster? And I'll ask that of both of y'all.
You know, it's up to the homeowner. We're providing this. We'll pick it up. We do ask people to get it out of their yards and get it up to the right of way. And if they can, if they're elderly or disabled, we have volunteers who are out, you know, cleaning up and getting it out for people on all the roads, private and public.
And I would say too, Brad, that, you know, you do have situations of companies coming to town to prey on local citizens, to price gouge, but we have several organizations that are deployed here locally. Team Rubicon, which does not charge for people that can't afford to have their limbs taken away. Billy Graham has an organization too that's here, and then the Georgia Baptist Association, I believe, is here too. So we do have 3 nonprofit groups that are here in town, and for the people that can't afford it, you know, they would like for these individuals and families to wait because they want to do this for free, which I think is a great thing for our entire community.
If we open our door and somebody's there and we can't remember, oh no, is this Team Rubicon or is this one of the agencies the mayor mentioned, what can we do right then and there in that person's face to figure out if they're legit?
I would ask them if they're charging anything, because all of our people, just like Mayor Copenhaver's, we don't charge anything. They're volunteers. We have the VOAD team, which is a volunteer team from the Church of the Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And they're the ones who have been really working, plus the Billy Graham Samaritans that you mentioned are out. And they have really cleaned up hundreds of yards. It is, and people are praising them and the work they're doing. And that helps us a lot.
Oh, absolutely. It's Samaritan's Purse, I believe.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
And Brad, I do want to make another comment that my brother John was Southeast Regional Director for FEMA in the Clinton administration, and I was talking to him on Sunday. He wants to use lessons learned in our community to help other communities. But one of the keys that I found was social networking. When you have power down, you have cable out, becomes key. I was constantly on Twitter getting messages out there. I know Columbia County was doing that, our EMA office, but that you realize how important that becomes very quickly.
I noticed that Governor Nathan Deal made sure the streets of Atlanta were clear when the ice started falling, and so we didn't have a repeat of a couple of weeks ago when the storm hit, and it was a much better go of it this time in the Atlanta area. What about those lessons learned this time around? If the next ice storm comes, God forbid, what would you do differently, if anything? Pam, we'll start with you.
You know, we're going to do an after action with everybody, so I don't know everybody's issues. Sometimes it's equipment that you need or more supplies. You know, maybe we need to bring in more salt next time, whatever it is. But I think we have more model, like Deke said, I think we have more model programs that people could follow and learn from than we did problems. For instance, taking phone calls into the EOC from the elderly and disabled and screening them and getting them on a list and then monitoring that list with the volunteers as they go out. That hadn't been done before. And, you know, just those kind of, and the social media, heavy use of social media, I think, you know, those were model programs for other communities.
Absolutely. And Charlie English, the director of GEMA was in town to brief us on Monday. He called our local response magnificent, but you can always do better. I will share with you a great story, though. Just to house all the workers that were coming into town, it's tough to adequately prepare for that. But we had a press conference on Friday, and when I was leaving the press conference, I was told that 500 more Georgia Power workers were on their way to town. So they said, but we need a place for them to stay. I had been by the Family Y earlier during the day and knew that they were considering opening up for people without power that night. They didn't need to do that. One call to Danny McConnell, their CEO, and that had that facility made available to 500 workers.
Yeah, they opened those doors. That was mighty nice of the Family Y. Two quick questions for both of y'all. First of all, speak to the people who are screaming at their televisions right now saying, that's all well and good, but where's my help? Where is mine? I'll ask the electric co-op people this in a minute, but where's my power? Why are these limbs still stacked up after all these sunny days? Because we're getting the calls at the TV station. Any word for those people who are very mad right now?
Yeah. Well, from the outset, we've told our citizens in Columbia County it's going to take 45 days. We may pick you up first day, we may get you 45th day, but be patient with us. And every single day I'm updating, here's the territory they're in now, and that makes people feel like, okay, well, they didn't just miss me, they hadn't been here. So I think that ongoing communication is something that's important.
Absolutely, and I understand, once again, when you endure as a city, a community, a weather event like this, there are going to be hardships, but we are out there working on this, cleaning up the community. We will get to you is what I would say, but I still have to say, overall, the response of this community is inspiring to me, and I would say that we've been very blessed.
And Mayor Copenhaver, at the end of the day, when you're sitting in a powerless house and you hear the ice falling and the trees cracking, it really boils down to make sure your neighbor's okay, and it sort of just exponentially grows from there, right?
Absolutely, and I cannot thank our citizens enough or compliment them enough, because people didn't have to be asked to provide food and shelter and cleanup efforts to their neighbors. They just did it. That is a reflection of the civic mindedness and the neighborly spirit in this community. That was amazing to watch.
Pam Tucker, any of your models showing another ice storm coming? Everywhere I go, they say, Brad, we hear round 2 is on the way.
I'm not seeing it anywhere.
I'm not seeing it either, yet.
I think that it was in the almanac, the Farmer's Almanac, so I don't see it happening. If it does, I promise you we'll be putting the word out. And by the way, during this whole thing, I didn't have power for a few days either, and all of our people who were working, so God bless everybody who was down here, in the EOC working so hard out in the field, the deputies and what they were going through without power for their own families.
I have no time left, but I don't care. I'm not going to let you leave without saying congratulations on your beautiful granddaughter born in the middle of that ice storm.
Yes, Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon, the first day of the ice storm. Yes, and she is a godsend.
Mom and baby are fine?
They are wonderful. Dad, Mom, they're all wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful news. Mayor Deke Copenhaver and Pam Tucker, thank you so much for what you did last week, what you continue to do, and for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Appreciate it very much. Great leadership in this area, no question about that. In a moment, representatives of electric cooperatives from the area are here to take the tough questions, to tell us where we stand and when everybody's lights are going to be back on and we can put Ice Storm 2014 mercifully behind us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Means Report, continuing our coverage of Ice Storm 2014 and the aftermath. Moving on now to the power situation. Hope yours is back on. There are a few of you who, as of late in the week, did not have power. So let's talk to the people in charge of some of the key electric cooperatives in not only this region, but the state of Georgia. We're going to begin with Gary Stooksbury as far as welcoming everybody. Gary is the Chief Executive Officer of Aiken Electric Cooperative. And Gary, thanks for taking time out of your busy couple of weeks to be with us. We appreciate it. Craig Heighton is sitting next to Gary. Craig is well, he's sitting next to Steve too. Craig is the Public Affairs Director for the Georgia Transmission Corporation. Probably a fair way to say that is a lot of electric cooperatives in Georgia teamed up and y'all help keep them on the grid and manage them?
That's right. We take care of the high voltage transmission for the EMCs in Georgia.
Okay, and of course Steve Chalker, longtime friend of News Channel 6. He's been around a good while working as the Director of Public Relations for Jefferson Energy Cooperative. Thank you all for the work you've been doing these past few days.
Well, thanks for having us.
Let me start with you, Steve, and where you all stand. We record this broadcast, as I mentioned, on Thursday, and as of Thursday, you've got some great news for your customers at Jefferson Energy. Tell me where y'all stood at the maximum of your outages and where you are now.
Well, Brad, at the height of the storm, we were at about 27,000 members that were without power, and fortunately today, or as of yesterday, Wednesday afternoon, we were able to get all those outages restored. So all the Jefferson Energy members are back with power, thankfully.
And Craig, we'll just keep moving down the table to you statewide, well, especially with the people in the counties that you serve in the CSRA. Just to name a few, we're talking Jenkins, Burke, Screven, Effingham, counties in that part of the state. How do you stand as far as your customers and their power?
Well, from a statewide perspective, we were looking at over 250,000 folks, probably about at the peak, close to 300,000 folks out statewide. Of course, this area got hit really, really hard. And so right now, as we are right now, we still have a few hundred to the south of us down at Planters EMC that we have crews tirelessly trying to get the power restored as quickly and safely as possible.
Let me stay on you about the Planters folks. Why is it taking longer?
Well, they're very rural EMC, and when you have rural EMCs, when you draw that number down, the lines that feed those homes are longer and longer. Every time you increase distance, you increase the risk of trees falling on lines. So we could have a half a dozen crews trying to repair various segments of the line to get one or two or maybe a handful of people restored. So as we draw those numbers down, it takes a little bit longer to get those folks on. All
right, Gary, at y'all's max for Aiken Electric Cooperative, you're talking about just under 30,000 people in the dark, if I'm not mistaken. How do we stand as of Thursday afternoon?
As of Thursday afternoon, we probably have 35 people out of power. I just got a text a while ago, the disheartening, that we had a car hit pole. So we've got several folks out of power right now because of that vehicle accident. But like you said, at the height of the storm, we had over 29,000 people out of power.
I have so many questions to ask you all, and I'm just in this constant state of fear that we're going to run out of time. So let me just start firing away, and anyone can answer this. How does power go out? All right, ice starts falling. We see transformers blowing, we think. We see the sky change colors, and we also hear trees falling. What makes somebody's power finally go out?
Well, Brad, that's exactly what happens is when the trees start falling, the limbs start falling, they simply break the lines that are up that also have ice on them as well. And you know, it's easier, they break easier when they've got ice on them. Of course, the limbs fall. You know, we do extensive right-of-way cleanup year-round, you know, but you know, when you've got a very tall tree that starts leaning over from the more ice that gets on it, it's eventually going to reach that line at some point. So. And
we were talking about up to an inch, if not more, of ice accumulation. That is just calling for catastrophic damage, and that's what it did. Our lines aren't designed to withhold, I mean, they were designed to withhold a lot of weight, but all that weight is just too much. And really, it's the trees that are falling onto the lines.
On the lines. And Gary, when we see these men and women out there in these bucket trucks and in these trucks working, what are they doing? Are they putting new lines in? Are they reattaching the old ones? What are they doing up there?
Several things. One is we have to start at the substation and then work out. And in Aiken Co-op service territory, we've got 5,300 miles of line in 9 counties. So you can imagine, like Steve was talking about, we're very rural in some of our areas, a lot of line, a lot of exposure. But what they do is we have to get the 3-phase circuit up and running first. And then we go from the 3-phase lines down to the single-phase lines. And so they're doing anything from picking up wire, reconnecting the wire, replacing poles. We've had over in excess of 200 poles. We've not done a final count yet, but we have replaced over 200 poles that were broken from the weight of the ice on the lines.
What are those crews doing as far as their hours go? And Craig, I'll just go back to you. Do they clock out at night when we get in our bed and it's still dark and it's still cold? Have they gone home for the night? A lot of people are wondering why it's taking so long, even though if you compare this to other disasters, it's not a terribly long time, but if you're living in the dark, it is.
Sure.
Are they working 24/7?
Well, first of all, our hearts and prayers go out to those folks that as we continue to try to restore power, those crews don't want to leave, but the physical demands on those crews, they have to get some semblance of sleep during this catastrophe. They get up before daybreak. They go to the co-op, get their orders, logistics, and then they head out. And it's like a command center with it all mapped out, and they're sending crews. Planners, for instance, has more than 300 additional linemen right now helping them out to get power restored. Those crews are out there during the day, the entire day. They don't get back to the co-op until well after dark, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. They grab a meal, grab a shower, and they're up in a few hours just to do it all over again. So
well, Gary,
they're working tirelessly.
And we thank you for that, Craig. Gary, let me ask you about any sort of pecking order or priority list. And we did have a graphic that showed there were about, it's good news, we showed about 80 people who were serviced by Aiken Electric Cooperative that were in the dark this morning. As of this afternoon, that's down to the 30 range, which is great. It's dropping. How do you decide who gets theirs turned back on first? Is it the easiest repair job?
No, what we do is we go to the substation, and when the circuit coming out of that station is not up, then we've got to get that circuit on, because it doesn't do us any good to go to the very tip end of the line, because it's like putting an extension cord together. You can put it together at the end of the line, but until you plug it into the wall outlet or at the substation, you're not doing anything to help the membership out there.
Okay.
So it is a very planned outage restoration. We know where the stations are, we know where all the breakers are and things like that. So we have to work from the source out to the very tip end.
Okay.
And to give you an example, in Windsor, which is one of our rural areas, we've got people that are 44 miles by way of wire from this substation. So they've got 44 miles of exposure. So if we've got 30 poles or 50 poles broke on that circuit, it's going to be a long time. And it just takes so many hours to repair.
You know what, I'm not trying to be silly. It wouldn't be horrible to live next door to a substation then, would it? Right next to the plug.
They have a lot of benefits to be close.
Yes. Steve, let me ask you this as far as looking at it from a big picture perspective. Anything you do differently next time around, if there is a next time? And I also want you to talk about any feedback you've gotten from your customers so far, positive and negative.
Well, hopefully there won't be a next time.
Yeah, I hope not.
But, you never know with these type things. And I just want to say that, we felt like we were doing what we should have been doing at the time. We called in crews prior to the storm hitting. We had them en route before, and we did the best we could. And as the storm moved through, we called in other crews as they became available from working in other parts of the state. So our disaster response program worked very well. We train, at least several times a year to do these type of exercises for worst case scenarios, which this pretty much was.
Would there, Craig, be any sort of way to make there be a faster response next time, or would you, like Steve said, just kind of implement the same procedures?
Right now we have excellent procedure in place. It has proven that it works. We're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature, unfortunately. And so you plan for the worst and you hope for the best. That's what we've certainly done. And just to see, if I might add, just the community outpouring of support for those linemen who are working tirelessly out there, bringing them soft drinks, bringing them lunch and that kind of snacks and that kind of stuff. And just to see that community rally, these communities rally around and get back on their feet. It's really an amazing sight to see, and we sure do appreciate everyone's patience. I know a week is a long time.
It is. It's a brutally long time, and we do feel for those of you who had to put up with it the longest. Would you change anything next time around, Gary?
Well, we can always learn from it.
Sure.
We're in the process of debriefing and talking about lessons learned and things like that. One thing that we had in 2014 that we did not have in 2004 when we had the last ice storm was social media.
Yeah.
We early on had a lot of responses on social media, and we addressed that after like day 1 or day 2 to get more information out to the people, to give them information. I think that was one of the most frustrating things. Our people were doing all they could do, and we, like Steve, had done a lot of pre-planning. We have disaster restoration plans in place. We had folks on the way. We knew this was coming, but the information to our membership, the first day they were a little bit disappointed in us. We were disappointed in ourselves, but we were just so overwhelmed at that time.
Let me ask you very, very, very quickly, Craig, for the Planters customers and Gary for the Aiken Electric Cooperative customers, is there any, will calling you do any good at this point, or should we sit tight and hope that by the time this is on TV Sunday, we're at 0?
We will be at 0. And one of the things people need to understand, we have a system in place where it is by power line carrier, and we can ping people's meters as long as the system's up and running.
So you can tell.
So we know those 40 people or those 35 people now.
That's helpful.
And when we go into the records and notice that people have called multiple times, that somewhat slows down the communication, but we understand people are very frustrated.
Y'all see them out there. You see them.
We see them. We know where they're at, and we're getting there. So
similar answer?
And yes, and Planters, we definitely plan on being fully restored by that time.
Steve, Craig, Gary, bless y'all. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it so much. And I appreciate the legions of men and women that these guys represent out there working tirelessly. The Means Report, back in a moment. Welcome back to the Means Report. We conclude each broadcast with our question of the week. We call it, what does it mean to you? And this time it's ice storm related, and it is, how has the ice storm changed the way you'll prepare for severe weather in the future? How has this changed you, folks? What will you do differently? Tell me. It's easy to stay in touch with us and share your thoughts via the social networks at facebook.com/The Means Report. Go there now. Go to twitter.com/The Means Report. How are you going to do it different next time? You can also email us, mwilson@wjbf.com or bmeans@wjbf.com. Put Means Report on the subject line. And do this now. Download our mobile app and you can watch all previous episodes. You can also watch newscasts live, which is great when the power goes out. But you know what? I hope it doesn't go out anytime soon. And I'm grateful to our experts and our leaders for being on this set today to talk to us. I hope that you and your family are getting more back to normal with each passing hour. You are in our thoughts and prayers. For Levi, Marlena, and the whole Means Report family, take care.